Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with your DRF race of the day for Sunday, September 18th, Belmont at the Big A. Race number 9 is the Grade 3 Pebbles Stakes, 3-year-old fillies, 1 mile on the turf, full field here, 12 in the main body, 1 also eligible, and we will be right back with a full preview after this message.
Want to view free Formulator past performances for this race? Head to the Race of the Day page at DRF.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel and bet this card with DRF Bets.
Here is the field for that Grade 3 Pebble Stakes at Belmont at the Big A on Sunday. It's the feature race on the card, a Grade 3 race again for 3-year-old fillies. As you can see there, a full field of 12 in the main body of this race. Number 13, Wonka, is also eligible. She needs a scratch to get in. If she does get in, she's certainly a horse who could win this race. Very lightly raced with upside for trainer Belmont. She'll have to overcome the far outside post, however, if she does get in. Pretty wide open race here. I didn't really, see anybody who necessarily stood out on form, but there's a lot of upside in here. Some very well-connected fillies in this race. A couple of European imports sort of spice this thing up a little bit. Your morning line favorite, and a very lukewarm morning line favorite, as you can see there on the entry card. Number 12, Gina Romantica. She's 7-2 for Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. Made her turf debut in her most recent start at Saratoga in the restricted risk-averse stakes. And, what can you say? She handled the turf pretty well there to win that race from off the pace. I like the way that she finished that race off. You got a good price on her that day. You won't get quite as good a price on her in this spot, and she'll also have the added, disadvantage of breaking from post 12. But she certainly ran well enough in her turf debut to be taken very seriously in here. We'll see what kind of price she winds up going off at. Let's take a look before we start looking at the individual contenders. Timeform US pace projector. They are, they're calling for a fast pace in this race. You see the red bar there on the pace projector with number 4, Faith in Humanity, one of the Chad Brown runners in here. He's got 3 in this field. One of the Chad Brown runners, Faith in Humanity, out there on the lead at the pace call. This horse does have plenty of speed. Only 2 starts so far in the career of Faith in Humanity. She's run well in both of them, though. She did show good speed in her career debut at Monmouth to win that race fairly easily at the end. She also ran in that risk-averse at Saratoga most recently and ran fine in that race. Closer to the pace than several of the horses who were also exiting that spot. And so you can give her a little bit of credit for that, because ultimately that risk-averse was a race that it just felt like everybody was closing at the end. Faith in Humanity kept relatively close to that pace, made the lead in the stretch, and then couldn't quite finish it off. But we'll look at the stretch replay of that race in a little bit. And listen, I think she'll be forward in this race to number 3. How'd you make your money? That's a New York bred. We'll see if she shows the kind of speed that she showed in her most recent race, because she just sort of ran off to the early lead in there and really paid the price, giving way to finish well up the track in that spot. She's not very good. She has a distance question to answer, but she does have speed. Let's start, breaking down these contenders here. One of the European imports that we referenced in the open is the number 1, Majestic Glory, 8-1 on the morning line. She's been transferred to Todd Pletcher for this stateside debut. I don't really have, any kind of a knock on Majestic Glory. I'm not sure how good, just from looking at many of her races over there in England to start her career. I'm not sure how good she actually is. She did win a couple of races as a 2-year-old, including the Sweet Solara Stakes, a Group 3 race over there. I thought she ran pretty well in that race. She also got a pretty good trip for the most part. You can see the short comment there: chased, lacked room, 2 furlongs out, and then ran. I think that's all accurate. She did, there was a brief moment there about a quarter of a mile from home or so where she looked to come through between horses, didn't quite make it at that point, but then that hole immediately opened up for her. She was still there. She came on through. She won that race pretty easily at the end. That was a good performance. They got her in 2 other races at the end of that 2-year-old campaign last year. Tougher races, Group 1, Group 2 company. Didn't run well in either of those. Came back off the layoff in April this year. First start as a 3-year-old. I thought she ran fine. She finished 3rd in that Group 3 race. The winner there, Wild Beauty, is a horse many of you will be familiar with. She shipped over here for Godolphin last year as a 2-year-old and won the Grade 1 Natalma up at Woodbine. She's a pretty good horse. I thought Majestic Glory just sort of ran okay in that race off the layoff, though. Never looked like she was going to win. Had a good trip overall. Just got 3rd at the end. I don't know. Didn't run that well last time in a tougher race. I guess she fits here. There are ways to make cases for her. Obviously, she has the inside draw, which certainly helps, and she looks like a pretty handy filly. I don't know. She could win here. I wasn't that interested, however. Number 2, Golden Rocket. one of the two New York breds in this race, the 2 and the 3, both New York breds. They're both exiting the Statue of the Statue of Liberty division of the New York Stallion Series up at Saratoga. We're going to look at the replay, the stretch run of that race right now, because Golden Rocket, you're going to see, is the longest shot on the board in this race, 33-1, and she's going to come with a pretty strong finish here. She had a very good trip in this race. Saved a lot of ground, just sort of raiding back off of it, while How'd You Make Your Money, who's also back in here, just sort of ran off on too fast of a pace in there. But you can see there in the stretch, Golden Rocket, once her rider there, Jose Gomez, edged her out into the clear through the stretch, she really ran in there. She came with a good finish. She closes that thing down late and is just best at the end with a new top figure. She ran fine in there. Her overall turf form is fine. This is obviously a huge step up in class for her. And so, you know, as well as she ran last time, she's going to have to improve again to beat this field. And she'll be a big price once again if you want to keep the faith and give her another chance in here. That pace projector we looked at before, I suppose, helps her chances once again. How'd You Make Your Money is just, to me, really hard to make a case for. She has a little bit of an excuse for that last one, just going too fast on the lead. But, you know, she has a real distance question to answer. So far, she's been best sprinting, and she's also probably been a little better on the all-weather surface than she has been on turf. I thought she was really hard to like in here. The 4 is Faith in Humanity, one of the major contenders, 5-1 on the morning line, a very close second choice on David Aragona's morning line. And again, has just run well in both of her starts so far. The maiden win at the end of July at Monmouth, going a mile and a 16. She ran well there, bumped at the start, but then she had speed. She kept up well in hand, tracking the pace, took over basically on her own power, and then just drove away from that field. Won it, probably ridden out at the end of that race. There was nobody closing behind her. I thought that was a good performance. Her risk averse, nothing wrong with that performance. Right off of that maiden win, in against a much tougher field and a big field at that, 10 horses in there. And again, she, you know, the trip wasn't a bad one, but she was closer to the pace than the winner was, than the third place finisher was. Everybody was sort of closing in that race. And Faith in Humanity, after making the lead in the stretch, tried really gamely to hold on in there. She just could not get away from that field, and then got run over late by her stablemate Gina Romantica. But a good performance nevertheless. She could get another good trip here. She's a major contender. Amo Ray is also exiting that risk averse like Gina Romantica, the winner of that race. Amo Ray was making her turf debut in that risk averse, and I feel like they made the service switch with her just because her form on the main track had sort of stagnated a little bit. She ran a few good races as a 2-year-old. Didn't seem like she came back and improved at all so far earlier as a 3-year-old this year. And so I think they made the surface switch just to see what would happen and maybe to try to wake her up a little bit. All in all, she ran fine in the risk averse. I didn't think she had a bad trip at all. She was away from the pace. Basically got a similar trip to the winner. Gina Romantica was slightly ahead of that horse through most of the running, did have to come a little bit wider to the stretch in that race, and then raced on, but just got easily out-kicked by Gina Romantica in there. Couldn't quite get up for second over Faith in Humanity. I thought she ran fine. I didn't think she ran great. She's 6-1 on the morning line. It's not a big enough price for me to want to go back to her. And here, Leah Marina is the 6. Christophe Clement trains. Very lightly raced 3-year-old. Started out sprinting, a little distance progression through her 3 starts as a 2-year-old. Won the last 2 of those, including her 2-turn debut at Gulfstream Park in the Wait a While Stakes, going 7.5 furlongs back in early December last year. I thought she ran pretty well in that race. She did get a perfect trip that day. And then she was very game to prevail at the end of that race. Her only start so far as a 3-year-old, that came way back in March in the Here Comes the Bride. She didn't run great in that race, but that was a really tough spot. The winner of that race, Spenderella, is just a really, really nice horse. Perhaps the best 3-year-old turf filly out there right now. Certainly one of them. And Spenderella just went right to the lead in there, made a very strong pace, and Leah Marina really couldn't cope with that. She did her best in there. There was really nothing that she could do. She just was not good enough and was not ready for that kind of a tough race that early in her career, and she was really no factor at the end. Laid up since then, starting back now. I guess this is the right kind of a race to bring her back in. She certainly has upside. She certainly has the right running style for this kind of race. She seems like a pretty handy horse, and the mile feels like a great distance for her. I think there's a way to make a case for Leah Marina in here. She's going to be a fair price, and if anybody told me they liked her in here, I wouldn't try too hard to talk them off of her. Breeze Easy, the 7, also trained by Christophe Clement, 9-2 on the morning line. Javier Castellano is going to be back aboard here. Javier rode her in her stateside debut, the Soaring Softly, going 7 furlongs back in May. She ran well in that race. Just missed at the end there, finishing second by a neck. Got put in a little bit tight in the stretch of that race as the winner, Charty Party, came with a strong run and overpowered her. It left her in a little bit tight there. And then she got out again and she raced on to the end. I thought that was a pretty good performance. I wasn't, blown away by it, but I thought she ran well there. Her 2 starts since then, they don't do a lot for me. She did finish 3rd in the Wild Applause, going this 1 mile distance 2 starts back. That was only a 4-horse field. The 2 Chad Brown runners who were in there both outfinished her pretty easily. I don't know. I guess she ran all right in that race, and she was on the lead early there, and maybe that's not where she wanted to be. Last time they tried to cut her back to 5.5, and she's probably just not a sprinter, although she did win. Her only win over in Ireland or in England as a 2-year-old did come sprinting, but that's probably not what she wants to do. I don't know. I guess she's another horse who could win here. She certainly makes a lot of sense on paper. I just haven't been blown away by any of her 3 starts since she's arrived stateside. The 8, another Chad Brown trainee, Bahamian Club, 6-1 on the morning line. Irad Ortiz rides this one. 2 for 3 lifetime. The only time she lost off the little bit of a layoff there in June in an allowance race, and she ran well that day, down on the inside at a time when you probably didn't want to be down there. And she also didn't get through on the inside when she was trying to rally in there. It was hard to tell, how much closer she was going to be at the end of that race, but she was certainly going to be closer. And I like her other 2 starts. Her career debut was a good performance down at Tampa earlier this year. It looked like maybe she wanted to hang a little bit in that race after she overtook the leader, but she still managed to fight that horse off at the end. Sort of a similar effort in her most recent start. We're going to take a look at the replay. I think we have the replay of Bahamian Club's most recent start. This is an allowance race at Saratoga on August 12th, and she sort of does the same thing here. First of all, she got a great trip in this race. Very handy from the start, able to establish her own position up close to the pace, sat in behind. You see her come through on the rail in the stretch there to challenge for it, and it looks like she's going to draw off. And then she doesn't quite kick away from this horse, Diamond Hand, who was on the lead. And Diamond Hand, you're going to see battle back at the end. And it's close, actually, at the end here. Bahamian Club does win the photo. I still feel like she won that race a little bit easier than the margin suggests. I don't think she was ever going to let Diamond Hands get by. It's concerning that Bahamian Club seems to have this habit where she doesn't want to move away from horses in the stretch, but she appears to have a good amount of ability. She has a great running style for this race. She's really, really well bred, a very strong family on the dam side here. And obviously Chad Brown, once he gets these horses good, they tend to stay good. I think she's a major player in this race. She might have to improve somewhat in order to beat this field, but I think she could certainly do that. I like all 3 of her races. Number 9, Miss Carolyn, another import from England into this race. And we'll see if she's going to be able to improve enough to really factor her, because it feels like she's going to have to do that. I actually like some of her races over there, however. And she's a horse who won twice over in England to start her career. 2 times they ran her in stakes races over there, and she was easily defeated by Breeze Easy last October and by Majestic Glory. Both those horses back in here, and they both easily sort of defeated this horse in the 2 stake starts over there. But I'm just going to be a little bit forgiving of Miss Carolyn for those 2 races. One of them was in her final start as a 2-year-old, right off of her maiden win. The other one, first start off the layoff this year. She didn't run great in either of them, but those races are separated by a layoff. 2 starts back when she posted the 2nd win of her career, I thought she ran really, really well that day. She rated at the back. She made an early move to run right past the leaders in there and take over. And then she stayed really gamely when a couple horses came and tried to close her down late. I really liked that performance. They stepped her back up last time. No good again. So obviously she has something to prove here as a stakes horse, but I think that she might be a little better than she looks on paper, and she's going to be a price for Grand Motion. I'm going to use Miss Carolyn in here. Sal buys the 10, another horse I just want to use in this race because I just think she's underrated. Grade 2 winner as a 2-year-old. She's come back this year. She's stakes placed twice, including in that Grade 3 Soaring Softly 2 starts back where she finished just behind Breeze Easy, and I thought she ran pretty well there. She made a bold move up to contention and just got outfinished by a pretty good winner there. To Lake Placid last time. I'm just going to give her a pass for that one. It wasn't her best performance. However, it looked like the plan initially was to rate from the gate in there. They just sort of didn't go from the start. Once Haughty, the eventual winner of that race, just got absolutely loose on the lead, I think Jose Lozcano made a decision that, I can't just sit here. I got to go make an early run after. He did that. And Salby was no match. That was a way better field than this one, though. I'm going to give her a pass for that one. If she can rebound here and run one of her better races, I think she's a major player. And here she's 12-1 on the morning line. That's good enough for me. She also has a great running style for this race where she can be close, but doesn't need to be on the lead. Saratoga Chrome's the 11, another New York bred, just got a long overdue maiden win in her most recent start, August 11th at Saratoga. Ran fine in there, but it was only a 67 buyer. She looks like she's just in way over her head here, and she's 50-1 on the morning line. If you like her, you should bet her. She's actually run some good races in the past. Gina Romantica is the 12. She's the morning line favorite, and it's going to be very interesting to me to see if she can back up that risk-averse performance. Because if she does, she's probably going to be pretty tough. And I think she's another horse. They paid a lot of money for her. I think she's another horse that they switched to turf with, because at the end of the day, she just didn't turn out to be that good on dirt. I really did like her career debut where she won at Tampa sprinting, but her 3 starts after that, I thought left a lot to be desired. So they switched to turf, and here is the risk averse right now. She runs really well in here. She did get an overall really good trip and ride from Flavian Pratt, but you see there in the upper stretch, sort of blocked behind horses needing somewhere to go. Pratt will ultimately angle her out to the clear there with about 1/8 of a mile to go. She has plenty of time, and she really kicks it in now. This is a pretty strong run through the final furlong to close this race down. A good performance. She was 14-1 that day. She's going to be a fraction of that price coming back here in this grade 3 Pebbles. In some ways, I believe that she's the horse to beat. I'm not sure how short a price I want to take on her. But certainly she's a horse who I think you have to sort of start the discussion with her and decide what you want to do. I kind of want to try to beat her, but I won't be surprised when she runs well again. Walker's a 13. If she gets in, she's a contender. Again, very lightly raced, and I like her form overall. Didn't love her risk-averse performance from the far outside, and she'll be the far outside again if she gets in here, but she's a horse who could easily take a step forward and be competitive here, second off the little bit of a lay. If she gets in, I could probably, try to find a way to use her. But this is just a really, really interesting race. Wide open grade 3 Pebbles here as your Sunday race of the day. A lot of different ways to go. I went with, as you can see right there, the picks are up. I went with number 8, Bahamian Club. I really like this horse's first 3 races. I think she's going to fall into a trip here. I just think she might be even a little bit better than she looks on paper. I went 8, 10, 9, and 12, but there are a lot of different ways to go here in your Sunday DRF race of the day. Belmont at the Big A, race number 9, the Pebble Stakes. The approximate post time is 5:13 Eastern time. Good luck.